Yes, my name is Inka Kretschmer. I'm a leadership and organizational coach and consultant and the co-founder of Strength Circle, where we see ourselves as a sparring partner to help leaders to build inclusive organizations, strengths-based organizations, so topics of leadership development, what came up, also with the IDB strategy, inclusion, diversity, belonging. And a lot of them are very fast growing. It's always interesting, obviously, in terms of what happens to their culture while they do that. And I'm very happy today to be talking to Marian Jarzak, who is the employer branding manager at Taxfix, which is one of the most successful fintech companies in Europe at the time. In just 2 years, Taxfix has raised 42 million euros. Marian Jarzak, he joined in August as their first employer branding manager, and he's really on a mission there to build the best employer brand there. Previously, he's worked as an employer branding manager at Project A and as a communication manager at Rocket Internet. He also has his own blog, so please check it out. It's called talent.io, which is all about employer branding. We also have Cassandra Hoermann from Personio, where she's the lead employer branding. And this is really quite exciting because in the time that she's joined, which is just over a year, she helped to grow the company from 100 to over 300 people now. So they really tripled in less than 12 months. It's really not just for her about attracting the right talent, but it's also about retaining them. So hopefully she can talk to us about that. So, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderfully on cue, you appear. Great. So, first of all, why don't we take a little poll? Who here in your organization has actually an employer brand strategy? Hands up. Oh. Interesting. Who's thinking about it? Oh, you come to the right place then.
You know, I'm also doing very, cheap freelance consulting, so it's not a problem. You can book me.
Does your employer know that?
Yes, I have a contract.
Fantastic. So I don't know about you, but when I'm at some kind of family reunions, and I see some kind of long lost older relatives and they ask me what I do, it's always a little bit of a struggle. I think I've got my kind of pitch right now, but turning to you, if you were to tell my old elderly grandmother what it is you do in 30 seconds, what would you tell them? And what does it have to do with culture?
Wow. I mean, I think it's a tough question because it's like funny. I mean, some years ago, I was telling my mom even, I did like a huge internal engagement campaign where I branded stuff and cookies. And she was like looking at me and was like, oh, Marian, you studied even a master and now you're putting icons on cookies? And I was like, Mom! And, but for my grandparents, I think I would even take it more low-key and say simply that employer branding or Marian helps companies to create a really amazing place to work. And maybe, it sounds like very shallow or very stupid in the sense, but I think it's very smart because with saying this, you really emphasize that employer branding, tackles the whole HR life cycle from, attraction to onboarding to retention, but also to offboarding. And I think sometimes, we focus too much only on the attraction or recruiting part, but with saying, okay, we want to create something amazing, an amazing place to work, we really tackle all these different aspects. Yes.
It's not too easy in 30 seconds, huh?
Yeah, it's tough.
So what I would say is that I help our company just to look for the right people and make them known about us as an employer and raise their desire to work for us. And once they join, just to help to make it the best place to work for them. And I think this is a very, very easy thing. And then I once, when I started, I did like a little presentation for my family, what I'm actually doing.
Oh, nice.
So I'm trying to show them what we're doing, and like with a lot of pictures and all that stuff, and so they can relate to. Yeah.
Great. I don't know if people have the same question mark in their head as me, saying this sounds great, but how do you do that? Marian, you joined in August, and basically before you, that role didn't exist in the company. So they decided at employee, how many to get you in? How many were there when you joined?
Oh, I think when I joined, we're like between like 80 and 100 employees.
Okay, so at that stage, is that a good time for you, you think, to get somebody in for that role?
I mean, I'm not sure if there's like a certain timing when you should get in the company. I mean, in my opinion, it's even better, to focus like very early stage on this. So maybe even before. But I think if you have like ambitious plans and you want to, grow a company like excessively, you need to focus at one point on employer branding, because I think a lot of companies are failing this, and they are looking for employer branding people when it's already too late, when there are like a lot of stories out there, fuck up stories, and that it's like annoying to work there or horrible to work there. And I mean, also at Taxfix right now, it's a very thin line, because we are growing very fast, and either you create something amazing or you fuck it totally up in terms of culture or employer branding. That's why I think the earlier you bring in someone, the better.
Okay, so then you've arrived in August. Tell us just a little bit of, so how do you start? What do you do? How do you do this kind of from scratch?
Wow, I mean, I think it's a good question, because at first I think as an employer branding manager, you really have to identify, you really have to do your due diligence if it's like the right fit, and if this company like really values employer branding. So for me, for example, I had like 7 interviews, and I think I was like the most annoying candidate in the process, because I asked so many questions. I had like very particular like expectations, because I think if the management doesn't support you, or also the leaders don't support you in this sense, then it can only fail. And when I joined, I basically created a strategy. I looked into the values of Taxfix, which are basically understand, deliver, develop, and trust, which maybe sounds very like, I don't know, macro perspective kind of thingy, but they are really cool. And this understand value really stands for understanding the business. So I think often we are like pressured, at least in Berlin, in the Berlin field, that you deliver and deliver and deliver. And I mean, my background from like Rocket and Project A was also always super focused on delivering. But I think understanding probably is, the key to the problem. So right now I'm still like in a brand discovery phase, where I teamed up with our branding department, which are taking more, care of the consumer brand, and really uncover, basically what the company internally stands for. Because I believe that an employer brand cannot, live up or survive when your employees, are not supporting you or empowering you or, walking the brand in the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Cassandra, now you've had this kind of incredible growth journey going on, which I don't know if you kind of were prepared for, if that's what you kind of thought when you walked in there. Tell us, what does that mean when you do this? When you come in and you have to get that many people through the door, and how do you make sure they're the right people, and also that they actually want to stay?
Yeah, I mean, when I joined Personio, I knew that we will be growing, but I didn't expect us to be growing that super fast and crazy. And like every day it's coming up new challenges, and sometimes I feel like we're surfing. Like nowadays we're surfing, we're doing the wave, but sometimes the wave is a little bit quicker than us, and sometimes we manage to go there. And so I hope that we won't get like into the washing machine like one day. So it's coming up with new challenges every day. And so what we're trying to do is in this hypergrowth, like getting the right people, like our recruiting team is like very big and trying to attract the right people. And like our strategy is on basis of our core purpose, values, and operating principles, and we try to implement them in our day-to-day life, in our recruiting process, in our onboarding. So we make sure that the people will stay after they joined us.
So cultural fit came up before, and I have to be frank, I really struggle with that term, cultural fit, because what I see in a lot of organizations, similar to what Anna said, it means in the end that you get people who look alike and are alike. How does cultural fit come in for you in your organizations? Is this something that you base your recruiting on? And if so, what does it mean? And how do you avoid that it doesn't just mean, kind of bias and just people wanting to hire people that they want to hang out with rather than the right people?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Both of you.
I mean, for example, in our recruiting process, we place very strong focus on values and shared beliefs. So, for example, in the last stage of the interview, we have a peer interview where the candidate gets to meet 2 or 3 people who are working with them very closely. So just to see if it's possible or can you imagine to work with those people. And the problem that we had a couple of months ago is that because people who were longer with us, they were like used to work with their best friends, right? And now it's changing. So it's not about working with your best friends, it's about working with the best people in the job, and if they become your best friends, that's a plus. So this was like kind of what we recognized, that a lot of people like rejected because they felt like, oh, this is not the friend type, and he's not wearing the same sneakers, we have the same problem or the same issue, like everyone looks the same. In winter it's Doc Martens and in summer it's Reebok Club Classics. So so the peer interview is one thing, and this is like to us very important because we want the candidate to feel valued, and I think this is a very awesome chance to get to know your coworkers even before you sign, because I remember when I decided to join Personio, I knew some people who were working there and I had a call with them and blah, 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 and they just told me how it is, like when there's no supervisor around. I think this is a nice thing. And if, for example, someone is like, okay, his hobbies in the CV are table tennis or ping pong, and we have a ping pong area in the office, so we just don't do it as a proper interview. So just say, okay, let's go into the playroom and just play some ping pong just to get to know each other. And the second interview in the last phase, it's called values interview, where you have a 30 minutes interview with someone in a leading position who is not going to be your direct lead. So he or she, they're really going to challenge your values and asking questions like, from your past, how did you behave in such situation? How do you embrace feedback? How do you react to change, just to get to know the person better? And then we can, like, luckily, it works out quite good, and there are rarely people who leave within probation time.
To be honest with you, I think in my role, I always say I'm a kind of like open relationship with like different departments. So like branding, people department, talent acquisition. I'm not the person who's taking care of the recruiting process. Mm-hmm. But I also know that we are having a cultural fit interview, which is basically based on our 4 core values, which I understand, deliver, develop, and trust. But, to really ensure that we not hire all the same kind of people, but really, foster diversity, but also inclusion in the workplace, we are creating right now a program internally where people can sign up for these cultural fit interviews, so that everyone, has the chance to do these interviews. So not only, management or leads are doing these interviews. And we also have a diversity guild within the organization who's taking care of this topic, which was, built up by the employees themselves. And how we came up, with building this program of, I would call them cultural fit ambassadors maybe, was basically that right now I'm also building like a brand ambassador program internally where, people have the chance to go out and spread, the positive word of mouth about Taxfix, because I think the issue is that when you think about taxes, it's always, this big elephant in the room. Nobody likes to talk about. Nobody
or do them
would maybe like to work. Yeah, do them would probably like to work for a tax company because it sounds like so stiff and boring. But actually, we are like really a diverse set of people with many different backgrounds, and we see us really more as a fun place to work compared to, traditional tax advisors or tax companies in Berlin. And we also, see us a bit like activists. We empower people actually to get back what they deserve, because, you spend, a lot of money on taxes, and then if you don't file your taxes, you miss more than $1,000 a year, at least in Germany. So this is really like, these probably 2 brand assets which we would like to foster.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I find it often very interesting, the kind of like when we talk about culture and what really makes people also want to stay in a company, and it's like, it's the culture. And then it's often maybe mistaken for the perks that people get, It's like, and the ping pong table and the free lunches and this and that. And in my experience, and also what research shows us, maybe that makes some people walk through the door, but it's not really the things that what people stay for. So in terms of really, if we look at it in terms of that for culture and for kind of the belonging bit for your people, what is it that you do in your organizations to make sure they actually stay?
I mean, just touching upon what you said previously, that perks don't matter. It's like really exciting because I'm right now in this brand discovery phase where I did like different interviews with different employees from different departments, and it's really like this. People don't give a damn, let's say it like this, about perks, right? They don't care about this. They want, like the guy earlier said, want to have a purpose and want to have this vision, but also I think the development, right? At least in Berlin startups, they want to have like a personal and professional development somewhere where they can grow, basically. I think this is honestly, in my opinion, the most important part, I guess.
What about you? Because Cassandra, we had a chat earlier where you also said that it's been only 3 or 4 people in this massive growth that actually left during their probation period, which is amazing. Yeah. So what do you think is the secret, if you can share that?
Yeah, sure. I think it's that you know that you're part of something big, and you really know what is our B-hack, so what we really want to achieve in the future, what's the vision, and everyone knows what's his or her role on our journey to that. And we have, for example, regular update meetings on Fridays, and we're sharing our purpose and our vision every Friday. Sometimes it feels like, I don't know, like in a club somewhere, and you're like getting it over and over again. But it's like everyone knows it, and if you ask someone, everyone could tell, and everyone knows how their impact on this is. And I think this is like a very a strong factor for the people.
I think one, factor which also pays off into this belonging, you always think it's like very shallow or not very sophisticated. And I also thought this before I started, this brand discovery with the interviews and also a survey which I'm running right now, is like really visual branding. I really thought that it's like 80s style of branding when you put brand like merchandise or your walls or roll-ups or whatever. But then I was like talking to people, and probably you think this, but when you're joining from companies which are like massively branded, everyone was telling me it had like a massive impact on them. It really, created this feeling of belonging. And also when they were walking around then on the streets, consumers were, approaching them and saying, "Hey, I'm using your product," or something. Or when they had a product launch, they printed like mugs, and developers were taking pictures with this and spreading the work. It sounds like so shallow, but I think sometimes it really has a big impact in the end of the day. So for example, like 2 days ago, we had like a team Christmas party, and I just, made this t-shirt, best talent acquisition team in town for the team. And it was so amazing, how sparkling their eyes were. And they said, I will always wear this t-shirt now. I will, sleep in this t-shirt. I will walk around in this t-shirt. And I mean, for branding, it's the best thing you can get. When, someone gets excited, you just take a second out of your day to make something amazing for a person. And I think it might sound shallow, but I think this also really pays off for culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at your career, back onto your career as employer brand specialists, if you could go back in time, what are maybe like two, three things that you say, oof, I would do that differently now, or that didn't work?
Wow. I think my life is full of failure, to be honest. Yeah, it sounds very hard, but yeah, I'm very harsh with myself always.
Yeah.
But I think even when I joined Taxfix, actually, I was like super focused on delivering. Because I think I always worked in very competitive environments. I'm always afraid to, be laid off or something. So I really defined the strategy, and probably I neglected a bit this, brand discovery part, because I had a lot of initiative which I wanted to start from scratch. And then I was told also, okay, Marian, just breathe, maybe take a step back, because for us it's very important that you focus first on the brand discovery. And I think this, for example, would be something which I would make different in the next endeavor where I would go, right? That I would really get the buy-in from the management saying, hey, let's first discover the brand, build it like really sustainable, because in the end of the day, this also has an impact on the culture, and then go and become the best employer brand in the world.
What's been your biggest learning, or where you say, that I would do differently?
I don't know if, differently is hard, but what I, catch myself all the time, that I tend not to have as much time as I want to, just to connect with my colleagues and all the others, because if I don't have like a huge internal network, then I have nothing to talk about, right? And the most important thing for us in employer branding is to tell real, authentic stories. Yeah. And if you're not connected with the people, then you cannot tell anything, because we're just in HR, we're nothing. So it's just really like just always reminding myself just like to just maybe you like miss like a slightly little deadline or something, but it's more important to take more time to get in touch with the people. Yeah.
And if I may just add one thing, I think for like HR people or people who are working with people development, you always say you need to be like close to the people, you need to understand them, to develop them. But I think with employer branding, it's like the same. You really need to be like close to your employees to really, uncover these stories which they want to tell, and also, push them a bit, kick their asses a bit, because sometimes you think they are super busy and probably like tech people, they don't want to do it, but then you approach them and they are like so happy, and they are like so amazed that they can tell their story in their own way. I think this is like super important to to create this authenticity. But that's why I think you always need to be close to the people. Funny story, like in my previous company, I always had the title being the most inappropriate person in HR, because I was always, in the core of the gossip. I don't start rumors or don't start, fake news. But I always had good relationship to office management, because there you get like the stories, and then you can also approach the people and get like stories which also pays off for your brand. I mean, like positive gossip in this sense.
To me, they're like, oh, you're not HR.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can you're not HR.
Well, thank you so much. I have another million questions, but I will actually open the floor so that you have the opportunity now to ask Marian and Cassandra some questions.